Welcome to the Trashcats Trashcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today we're traveling to another universe, a true trash utopia for rats. Today we take you to Universe 25, a behavioral studies experiment performed during the 1960s, where all of the physical resources of the world were provided for an entire colony of rats. But at what cost?
It was a steep cost. And that was a beautiful intro.
Thank you.
This is a weird one. Very
recording during the daylight.
That is also weird. We're on a abnormal podcast recording schedule. It's kind of fun, though.
Steven's sitting in front of a window, so I just see a silhouette of a man.
I'm Jesus-ing. How was your week, man?
It's not too shabby. The Olympics have been going pretty good. I've been following that curling. Italy took gold in mixed doubles. That's their first Olympic medal in curling yet, God. So they did good.
You're ridiculous. You look sharp, too.
Thank you. I'm all souped up for the Super Bowl.
Oh, my goodness.
I got a bright orange tie going. It's the only orange thing I own.
I say 60-40s, Bengals bungle it.
I always go into a Bengals game anymore that they're gonna fail. Yeah. So I feel like if the superstitious, like that superstitious sports thing where like you have to keep doing the same thing, so they do, like you have to wear the same jersey, you can't wash it or whatever. As long as keep thinking like they're gonna fuck this up, then they might pull through. Who knows?
Exactly.
How's your week been?
Oh man, to be honest, it's been an awful week, but
that sucks.
I just had a big ass bowl of cereal with a banana chopped in it and about 500 milligrams of caffeine. So I'm ready to fucking go.
Hell yeah, man. It's going to kick in about 30 minutes.
Yeah. I did have a weird one. So I just things from the past were coming up this week, but I had one particularly weird one. So I was at the gas station, right? And this is the sketchy gas station. Like, they're pretty much all sketchy.
Yeah. On the Price Hill.
This is the River Road level sketchy.
Though. Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was at that one. And, anytime you're going to a West Side gas station, you have to be ready for war. You don't know what's going to happen. But somebody wants to jack your shit at all times. So I'm doing my normal thing. And I see this dude. And he's probably like 45, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I haven't seen him probably in 10 years. And the last time I saw him, we were standing in the middle of traffic trying to fight each other with knives.
Oh, cool.
And it's like, I know he didn't recognize me, right? I don't think he would. Like, even if like I shook his hand, I don't think he'd know who I was. And it's just one of the, and I hold like no resentment at all. Right? Like, it's just weird shit, weird circumstances put us in an adversarial position, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know the guy. And it's just weird. Like, life's just so fucking weird. Like, that, I don't know. It kind of threw me for a loop a little bit.
Can I say your life is probably weirder than others?
It may be.
Where, like, I would never run into somebody in a gas station who I tried to fight with a knife 10 years ago.
Here's another one. I hear probably, it's like 50 to 100 gunshots a week, right?
Yeah.
At one point, I realized one of the guys shooting his gun, like, all week, is a guy, like, I lived with for a year in rehab.
Oh, cool.
And he's just, like, fucked up all the time. And he lives, like, 5 blocks away. And I can tell how he's doing by, like, how many gunshots I hear that week.
It's like... It's like Morse code.
And I yell into the distance, "Hey, buddy. Hope you're doing all right."
He's trying to keep that rent low.
Right. Yeah, man, it's just been one of those weeks. But staying positive, keeping it moving. Very excited to talk about this crazy mice utopia.
Yeah, pretty fucked up. First, you got some honorable mentions for us?
First one, I want to shout out one of my favorite tattoo artists. Her name is India Burns from Skincraft, and I've known her since I was like 15, 16, and I was working the counter there. She's actually doing a back piece for me that I'm very, very excited about. It's going to be my whole fucking back. Just started it like a week ago, and it's going to be an ongoing project for the next 6 months to a year, anticipating at least 30 hours of of time underneath her needles. So I'm very excited. She's very talented. She does realism, but she can do a lot of different styles, but she just does realism really well. So I got a couple of them here.
Yeah, wow. Her black work is really incredible.
Yeah, her realism with black and gray is it's bold, but it's soft. Shadows are right.
Oh, the colors are really nice too. Jeez.
She tattoos gentle, but it heals very clean and stays so great. And she's just such a sweet person. She was always very kind to me. Both her and Josh and Grant up at Skincraft have always been very kind to me when I was crazy as fuck. And
Grant used to have the blonde hair, Grant?
No.
Okay.
This is King Ears.
Oh, no, not the person I'm thinking of at all.
That's my homie. That's my big bro. Yeah, this neck piece with the honeycomb, gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely buck wild.
What was
intricacy of it is outstanding.
Yeah, I particularly love the big pieces she can do, where she can really like get creative with it. Her color's great. I'm very excited to get tattooed by her again. So.
Man, that on the shoulders and across the neck and the chest, like that's a statement right there, man.
Yeah, the collarbones suck. Yeah, anything directly on bone fucking sucks. But I really love neck tattoos. It just sucks that so many people have ruined them with trashy, art. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
neck tattoos got a bad rep. We gotta.
You ever seen Violent J's neck tattoos?
Not that I remember.
They're so hood, dude.
Those can be fun too. All right. So India also does like little sculpture stuff that are really fun, like miniature work. So I was thinking of other stuff that she reminded me of. And have you seen this artist before? This is the second one. Tiny Little Elves, aka Abigail Goldman.
No, I don't think I have.
This is like, I think something you'd like a lot. So she does miniature sculptures, right? They're almost little dioramas, like a little slice of life,
Yeah.
And they're all like murder scenes or like crime situations with miniatures.
That's brutal. Yeah, these are awesome.
They're so weird.
Yeah.
It's like a wife murdering the husband in a kitchen. All made, like the blood, the little figurines, all painted.
Vending machine full of body parts.
It's just so fun. Like, honestly, these are cute as fuck, though, for real.
Yeah. Yeah, very into it. This is awesome.
I thought
the craft that goes into that, the time and the detail work.
Yeah.
This just to make and set a scene that's very cool.
It's all those small details that they add up, and I love how it's like a little 3D environment, how she builds them too, like they're their own standalone universes.
There's a whole story involved out of just a still moment. Very cool.
Yeah, all those subtleties tell this narrative. That's so much fun. So, all right, and then real quick, the last one, maybe I'll spend some time on this another time, but I feel like a lot of people may know of this place. It's kind of in a similar vein, Meow Wolf. I think I've showed you this before.
I believe so. Yes, you have.
I have a buddy that, I don't know if he still works there, but he was working there for a little while. Meow Wolf, it's an arts production company, and they have like a physical place you go to, like it's not a store, but it's their location, right? And they create these immersive multimedia experiences, and it transports you to these weird realms. So they have artists like build these rooms and stuff, and a lot of it is like traditional surrealism, like you walk into a kitchen space and all the like it looks like realism, and then the surrealness of like the tiles swirling, or the fridge opens up into a different room, like all these just weird experiences. And then they build like whole hallways that are sculptures. It's just like a giant art installation, room after room after room.
Yeah, wow. These are really intense.
Yeah.
A lot of them are really, they just set an entire tone. Imagine like walking through like different rooms of them. That's just,
yeah, dude, this place is massive too. Like it seems
like it'd be very overwhelming.
Yeah, it's definitely like a sensory overload shit. Like, this is the ultimate, like, eat acid dream, right? Like, for the hippie type, go to Meow Wolf, eat acid, feel the electric forest.
Damn right.
Yeah, I want to go there one of these days, but we'll maybe take a look at them another time. But I think without further ado, should we get to the mice?
Yeah, let's talk about these mice and rats and the man who came up with these wild fucking experiments.
Who is the madman? Chapter 1. This crazy fuck, his name is John Bumpus Calhoun, and he was an American ethologist and behavioral researcher noted for his studies of population density and its effects on behavior. He claimed that the bleak effects of overpopulation on rodents were a grim model for the future of the human race. His work gained world recognition. He spoke at conferences around the world, and his opinion was sought by groups as diverse as NASA and the District of Columbia's panel on overcrowding in local jails.
I thought that part was really interesting. It's something that I hadn't really considered being a problem, I guess. I've never been to jail. I've been in a holding cell.
Yeah.
But you can see how, it's its own, from what I understand, it is its own environment. Once you're in there, there's like you hear it all the time, all the stories of like they have their own economy.
Oh, yeah.
Trading cigarettes for shit.
Pop the light your cigarette. You blow the whole power in your little area anytime you pop a socket to light a cigarette.
Worth it.
It is. People do it. The JC downtown, dude, they're so overcrowded. The couple times I've been there, there's no pods. Everyone sleeps on the cement unless you're there for an extended stay. They just give you like a shit bed buggy blanket and you lay on the concrete. And that's like not abnormal for a lot of places.
It's fucking brutal.
So this dude's fucking with rodents, right? He's a scientist doing experiments on rodents, overpopulation, and how it affects behavior. And all kinds of people are taking his work very seriously and drawing a lot of conclusions from his work.
Yeah. In 1946, he worked on the Rodent Ecology Project at Johns Hopkins University. In March of 1947, he began a 28-month study of a colony of Norway rats in a 10,000 square foot outdoor pen. Even though 5 females over this time span could theoretically produce 5,000 healthy progeny for this size of pen, Calhoun found that the population never exceeded 200 individuals, and it stabilized at 150. Moreover, the rats were not randomly scattered throughout the pen area, but had organized themselves into 12 or 13 local colonies of a dozen rats each. He noted that the 12 rats is the maximum number that can live harmoniously in a natural group, beyond which stress and psychological effects function as a group breakup forces.
It's interesting that different species like choose the sizes they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I definitely think it's worth noting in these early experiments with these Norwegian rats in the really big areas that he was studying with them, he quickly realized that groups over this magic number, 12, whatever, was like guaranteed to cause psychological stress.
Yeah, and within a large area, a large surface area that they could work inside of and build their tribe, they still condense down to that small of a grouping.
Right. He's doing his early work. And then in the 1960s, the National Institute of Mental Health, NIMH, acquired property in a rural area outside of Poolesville, Maryland. It was here that his most famous experiment, the mouse universe, was created. Calhoun created a series of experiments that would essentially cater to every need of a rodent, and then track the effect on the population over time. The most infamous of his experiments was called Universe 25.
In this study, he took 4 breeding pairs of mice and placed them inside a utopia, quote-unquote utopia. The habitat was a 9-foot square metal pen with 4.5-foot high sides. Each side had 4 groups of 4 vertical wire mesh tunnels, and the tunnels gave access to nesting boxes, food hoppers, and water dispensers. There was no shortage of food or water or nesting material. There were no predators. The only adversary was the limit of space. Otherwise, it was an environment designed to eliminate problems that would lead to mortality in the wild. The mice were chosen for their health, obtained from the National Institutes of Health breeding colony, and extreme precautions were taken to stop any disease from entering the universe.
Yeah, it seems nice, right? He's taking care of these little rodents. Yeah. He's giving them a utopia. They're gonna get everything they need, right? What a kind man. He's doing a service. This is charity work.
Primo mouse living quarters.
And we will quickly see how this goes. But I do think it's worth mentioning that there are so many factors at play that it was very important to know that the mice were in good health at the start of the experiment.
Yeah, that is really big. The other thing that we had talked about is the difference if we had done it today, the differences in the health examinations of the test before the rats were, subjected to the test is you could do a lot more scanning, different kinds of tests to determine, factors that they couldn't have known about back then.
Right. Like if they could do like gene mapping or like a better blood work, different things that give them a true idea of the states of health of these animals at the start, because, well, we'll quickly see how this goes. So how did this fucker run Universe 20?
So the experiment can be broken down into roughly 4 phases. The beginning was called the strive phase, and as you'd expect, the mice used that time that would usually be wasted in foraging for food and shelter on having excessive amounts of sexual intercourse. About every 55 days, the population doubled as the mice filled the most desirable space within the pen, where access to the food tunnels was of ease.
So basically, all the mice are in this very small area, right? This is their universe, right? They have unlimited food and resources. So at this first phase, in the strive phase, they're just fucking and eating.
Yeah,
right?
Think of like, the real world TV shows. Right? It's like we'll provide you all the food and water you need. We're just going to stick you in this house with all these other, young horny people, and you guys just do what you do.
Strive.
Yeah, strive.
So they're striving, and then in the second phase, this is the exploit phase, which I think these names of phases are very, very intriguing to me because it says something about him as well. Population explosion means adjusting to the new issues of overcrowding, as well as the newly developed societal issues where mice would only eat in groups. Since they would often see others while eating, doing it as a community became a standard practice. When the population hit 620, it slowed to doubling around every 145 days as the mouse society began to hit problems. The mice split off into groups, and those that could not find a role in these new groups found themselves with nowhere to go. I also thought part of the reason they were eating in groups, right, is like safety. Like they're starting to, there's a little paranoia, right?
Maybe eventually. It wasn't so much an issue at the beginning. A mouse would just eat when they were hungry. It wasn't a big deal. But as it went on, there were rats or there were mice that would they wouldn't even approach the feeding thing if there wasn't anyone with them or if there wasn't someone already there. Like they would go in a group or, they would be hungry and they would look at it and be like, okay, no one's going to be here with me. Okay, I guess it's not time to eat yet.
Interesting. Now, just to be clear, because I know I'm going to make a mistake with this, is it mice or rats?
It is mice. I said rats, but it is mice. You're right.
Because some of his early studies were on rats, and then Universe 25 is just mice. So if I mess up saying it, it's just mice.
If I mess up, it means it's changing reality and it's factual now. But no, if I'm probably going to fuck it up too. So the next phase was called the equilibrium phase.
Phase 3.
Calhoun recorded, and this is his quote, "Males who failed withdrew physically and psychologically. They became very inactive and aggregated in large pools near the center of the floor of the universe. From this point on, they no longer initiated interaction with their established associates, nor did their behavior elicit attack by territorial males. Even so, they became characterized by many wounds and much scar tissue as a result of attacks by other withdrawn males.
That is interesting. So they're basically beta males.
Yeah, then they would just fight amongst themselves.
Yeah. No, I hate that
Right,
beta stuff. But I think it's very, like, it is odd too. And then I also like how he used the wording, they became inactive with their associates. Like mice have associates. Yeah. That made me.
Yeah.
Like they got briefcases and they go to meetings with their associates.
Pinky and Associates.
And they're just running. Like it almost sounds like if this were people, it almost sounds like the insecurities are leading to like actual violence. Right. The withdrawn males would not retaliate during attacks and instead lie there and accept their fate. Later on, they would attack others in the same way. That's like the cycle of abuse stuff for sure. The female counterparts of these isolated males withdrew as well. Some mice spent their days preening themselves, refusing to mate, and never engaging in fighting. Due to this, they had excellent fur coats, and they were dubbed the beautiful ones because the rest were ugly.
Yeah.
Right? They're all eaten up, and you have these like narcissistic ones that are like, I'm not fighting or fucking. I'm just going to be the beautiful ones.
I'm just going to eat bread and be happy.
Yeah. The experiment is also extra trippy because to keep track of some of the mice, Calhoun also like spray painted them different colors.
Oh, I didn't see that part. That makes sense.
Like he would do like a stripe on, and I think he specifically wouldn't to the beautiful ones, but there are some of these mice that are like rainbow. And it's bizarre. There's like mice gangs. They're all rainbowed out. It's some weird dark looking shit. Yeah.
It depends on what color you get painted. You got these red mice and these blue mice.
Right.
So the alpha male mice became extremely aggressive. They would start attacking others with no motivation or gain for themselves, and they regularly raped both male and female mice. Violent encounters sometimes ended in mouse-on-mouse cannibalism. Meanwhile, there's still a huge supply of food.
That's fucked up. I never would have thought of. I mean, mice will eat anything, right? But you don't think of mice eating each other.
Yeah, cannibalism doesn't really happen a lot in the wild. You know,
is that true?
There are situations of like it's survival, and you have to, like they're starving. You've got to do what they got to do. But yeah, that's not a common.
Is it common with mice? Do you mind looking that up? Yeah, I can look that up. Despite or perhaps because their every need was being catered for, mothers would abandon their young or merely just forget about them entirely, leaving them to fend for themselves. That's fucked up. That's like a mom leaving their kid in a mall full of cannibals. They're like, see you, kid. The mother mice also became aggressive towards trespassers to their nests, with males that would normally fill this role banished to other parts of the utopia. This aggression spilled over, and the mothers would regularly kill their young. Infant mortality in some territories of the utopia reached 90%. This was all during the first part of the die phase, the downfall of the utopia. So, who the fuck calls it a die phase?
Because where they start to die.
Oh my god! Well, this is wild though, right? Like it's still a utopia, but he's like making like they're all violently killing each other.
So I did find some more information, and apparently the cannibalism is a little bit more common than I thought. So especially in certain kinds of tadpoles, gulls and pelicans, praying mantis, or the Australian redback spider. The males offer their bodies as a final gift to the females after mating.
That's dope. That still sounds like it's not overly common.
Yeah.
I would love to see a pelican eat a pelican, though. That sounds like a really funny joke.
Well, it says the gulls and pelicans they eat hatchlings either for food or to prevent the spread of disease.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Interesting. So many rodent mothers may eat some of their young if they're sick, dead, or too numerous to feed. Bears and lions kill and eat the offspring of adult females to make them more receptive to mating. I knew that they would kill them. I didn't know that they would eat them.
So my guess with mice, though, is they're not really cannibalizing, like, especially their young, unless they're starving. Like, it sounds like they will eat other mice if they need to, but they're not like...
Yeah, it's definitely not a common thing among them.
Yeah, like in nature, if a mice has an abundance of food, like they do in the Universe 25, they're not going to just choose to eat their fucking husband and kids.
Right. So in the phase that Calhoun termed the second death, whatever young mice survived the attacks from their mothers, and the others would grow up around these unusual mouse behaviors, right? Like it's a whole different behavioral sect that's like learned from within the universe. As a result, they never learned usual mice behavior, and many showed little or no interest in mating, and they preferred to eat and preen themselves alone.
It's sad. Yeah. He's created, it's a dystopia.
The ones that survived ended up being, the beautiful ones that tried to keep away from the violence of it.
Yeah, and even the beautiful ones, they're still like totally isolated.
Right, exactly.
They're in this overcrowded universe, and they only care about themselves and their pretty fur.
Yeah.
The population peaked at 2,200. I think didn't it start like 100? Do you remember?
The original test subject. It was the 8 of them, so it was four pairs.
Wow, God, and they multiply that quick too. So the population peaks at 2,200, short of the actual 3,000 mouse capacity of the universe, and then it began to decline. Many of the mice weren't interested in breeding and retired to the upper decks of the enclosure, while the others formed into violent gangs below, which would regularly attack and cannibalize other groups as well as their own. The low birth rate and high infant mortality, combined with violence, soon the entire colony was extinct. Throughout the experiment, including the final days, food remained ample and every need completely met. What the fuck?
So they got a lot more out of the population than I thought they would have from reading, some of the earlier parts that like they still got to over 2,000 of them.
That is insane. Like that, the size of it, like I wouldn't want to put more than 10 or 20 mice. Like if I saw 20 mice in that area, I'd be like, that's a lot of mice in one area.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think like, let's multiply this out till we get to 3,000.
A 9-foot square with 4.5 foot tall walls. That's not a lot of space at all.
Here's what's crazy though. You have 3,000 mice, right? Or 2,200 is the max it got up to, right? With infinite food, even if you assume like some of them are going to die or that you can't reach 3,000, the absolute capacity, you would not think that all of them would die and that the colony would collapse.
Right.
So it's basically he found a way, I don't know, like he found a condition which the mice were so psychologically harmed that no amount of mice could live,
right,
even with infinite food. That is what is so surprising and shocking about it to me.
And the thing where, like they couldn't have even gotten to a point where the population, got smaller and regulated, and then they could continue then because the learned behaviors from within the society were all fucked.
Yeah, that the experiences they had gone through, they were so psychologically damaged they couldn't ever reach a small equilibrium even with all that food.
Yeah. So the findings from the research are kind of sporadic. Calhoun termed what he saw as the cause of the collapse behavioral sink. So this is a quote from him. For an animal so simple as a mouse, the most complex behaviors involve the interrelated set of courtship, maternal care, territorial defense, and hierarchical intragroup and intergroup social organization. When behaviors related to these functions fail to mature, there is no development of social organization and no reproduction. As in the case of his study related above, all members of the population will age and eventually die. The species will die out.
Wow. He really believed that the mouse experiment may also apply to humans too. That's what's... I think the study is one thing. Like, I could think the study is dumb or useful, or maybe there's something to learn, maybe not. I really don't know enough about the methods of how to do a better study. Like, it was the 1950s. It doesn't seem like this was right, though. Something just feels off.
Yeah, it seems fucked up from the start.
But it's so wild because the implications of his research and his belief that what he learned from Universe 25, he believed it directly applied to humans. And other people were drawing these parallels as well. It feels like that was his intention, though. And he wanted to investigate what happens when, in an ideal world, we as a people have all of our needs met. And it feels like he had his own idea in mind what that outcome would be.
And here's another quote from him. First, he was talking about the mouse, and then in relationship to human, he says, "For an animal so complex as man, there is no logical reason why a comparable sequence of events should not also lead to species extinction. If opportunities for role fulfillment fall far short of the demand by those capable of filling roles and having expectancies to do so, only violence and disruption of social organization can follow."
There's something to that. Like, it's almost the same argument of, like, you know, what good is a man without his job? Kind of like you need work for purpose. Like, they're taking our jobs.
Yeah.
All that
or,
shit.
you know, even like finding purpose within, you know, a social, within a society it's what we were just talking about, you know, with existentialism. You know, it's a lot of, you know, everyone needs a purpose. You need something, I guess, mirage even of your role in the world.
A reason to be here. And I think with that in mind, I think it's very important to note that I think even mice need to feel purpose.
Yes.
Like, everything needs a purpose. Yeah. Even objects, even a plant needs sunshine.
Very beautiful. Put that on a poster and hang it in an office.
Just a piece of grass.
Even a plant needs sunshine.
Anything living needs something to do. Like, we can't stay in a box and just eat forever.
Right, exactly.
It's just like trauma. That would be traumatic. Each meal would be so unfulfilling.
Yeah, and I mean, like, even within, I mean, you know, we'll touch on this a bit later, but it's like, you know, we're not rats, we're not mice. We can create new things. We can create things to do.
We have thumbs. They're stuck. I'm so sorry. I have to move this cat. I'm going to lose it. I'll be right back. Cat? Oh my God. You're gone. You went to jail.
This is the part of the recording process. And I hope that Steven leaves this in. It's the behind the scenes, the opening of the kimono, if you will, on the recording process that is the Trashcats Trashcast. You have to leave that in.
Dude, I put her away every fucking time, and then, like, every 3 months, I'm like, hey, I don't want to have to put away my cat when I podcast. I would love for her to just lay on my lap, and I can't trust her. She's untrustworthy. She deserves time in
She deserves a 9 foot by 9 foot by 4.5 foot pen.
Yes. She would eat all those rats, though, for sure. But the thing is now she's going to have to edit this episode. She's cost me so much time in editing. I'm going to make her edit.
Another part of the Trashcats Trashcast recording and editing process.
She can be our unpaid intern. So he offered them these mice, no purpose. Right. At the time, the experiment and conclusion became quite popular, resonating with people's feelings about overcrowding in urban areas, leading to moral decay.
Those are big air quotes from Steven.
Big air quotes. Although this ignores so many factors such as poverty and prejudice.
Right.
So this study took on a life of its own after he did his work. That's for sure.
However, in recent times, people have questioned whether the experiment could really be applied so simply to humans, and whether it really showed what we believed it did in the first place.
Real quick, this is like a classic example of like with COVID, testing certain drugs in, it's in vitro versus in vivo, right? Like some things work, some chemicals or drugs might work in a test tube to kill a virus, right? But in a human body, it's completely different. Like
the environment is there's too many other factors involved.
Yeah, they test steroids. Like there's all these kids taking SARMs and different other steroid-like substances, and maybe there is proof things work just perfect in rats, even in a test tube in rats, and there's no side effects, all these other things. But you have they have to do long studies with people. Obviously, if we put people in a tiny box like this, it's not going to go well. Like
in 2008, Edmund Ramsden, who's a behavioral and biological historian, said the end of the mouse utopia could have arisen, quote, not from density, but from the excessive social interaction. Not all of Calhoun's rats had gone berserk. Those who managed to control space led relatively normal lives.
Now, that is a slight contradiction, maybe?
Well, like the beautiful ones, it's not so much that they're normal lives, but they're relatively normal lives.
Yeah, that's fair. He didn't drive them all like straight crazy, but enough that eventually it killed them all. I do think it's very interesting in that he thought this all stemmed from excessive social interaction. Like instead of overpopulation, he's saying it's basically just they're forced in those social interactions far too much. Which is the result of overpopulation. But I don't know.
Well, on that, the experiment design has also been criticized for creating not an overpopulation problem, but rather a scenario where the more aggressive mice were able to control the territory and isolate everyone else. Much like with food production in the real world, it's possible that the problem wasn't of adequate resources, but more so that how the resources were handled.
Interesting. So there's unlimited food, but if you have groups of mice that, due to overpopulation, form these cliques, basically. These cliques or gangs. Those groups of mice, then, even though there's abundant food, they have control of it due to their aggression and size, whatever. So it leads to, I don't know what I think of the over-social, because if you look at it from that way or from the beautiful ones, like there's a lot of it seems like a lot of loneliness going on too.
Yeah. Well, I think from within the standards of the test, like the over-socialization within or without the outside interaction, without a predator or a source of a common enemy.
They're just stuck with themselves forever. Yeah. It's like my mirror torture.
Yeah, exactly.
Just stuck looking at yourself and your ugly fucking friends
watching
forever.
Yourself grow old.
All chewed up with no tails, scarred faces.
This experiment, socially lives on through a lot of, I guess not a lot of, but through a few different pop culture references.
Reddit posts and Facebook posts today. There's still fucking idiots that try to use this shit to justify whatever the fuck they want.
Reddit's basically just Universe 25.
I fucking Alan Grant, co-creator of the dystopian Judge Dredd character, which I will note, the newest Judge Dredd movie, the drug they use, do you remember by any chance? He has an inhaler. And it's like a heroin acid inhaler kind of deal. Like it's its own drug, but it's like the colors got weird and he's sedated in an inhaler.
Sounds cool.
Oh my goodness.
Down.
I would pay any price. So the co-creator of Judge Dredd had acknowledged Calhoun's work as an influence. Ramsden believed Calhoun's work may have influenced other apocalyptic fiction as well, including Soylent Green.
Also, the fun story we you might remember from your childhood, Miss Frisbee and the Rats of Nim is a 1971 children's book by Robert C.O. Greene, inspired by the research of John Calhoun on mouse and rat population dynamics at the National Institute of Mental Health, which is NIMH, N-I-M-H. This was later adapted into the animated movie, Secret of NIMH.
I wasn't familiar with that one and definitely didn't see it as a kid, but I have since learned that some people are, and that is really fucking weird.
Yeah, I definitely grew up with it. It's like a fantasy setting thing. It's a Don Bluth movie.
That is so weird. So this study, Weird Mouse Man Calhoun, makes the 25th mouse universe, and he kills a bunch of mice, and he draws parallels to humans, overpopulation, moral decay, and he calls it all the behavioral sink. And it's really fucking weird what people have ran with it. So what do we think? Where do you want to go?
So
with this?
One of the places I worked at after college had 2 kitchen doors. They were side by side. One was for incoming traffic and one was for outgoing traffic. The servers all knew this, and it's pretty common in a lot of restaurants. The purpose is to prevent accidents, people walking into one door and people getting into an accident where like the door smashes into them while they're carrying a bunch of food or dishes.
And the waiter drops a whole tray of spaghetti.
Big problem.
Yeah.
So one day my chef propped open one of the doors just to fuck with the servers. He said, watch, they're dumb as rats. They'll stop using both doors and they'll just start using the open one. And sure enough, he was 100% correct. Every server, the hostess, the front of house manager, the owner, they all came and went through the open door that morning. And sometimes they'd even stand to the side and let someone else come in through the door and wait until they passed before going the opposite direction, even though the appropriate door to use was directly next to that door. So while I think it's a stretch to completely translate this experiment to human behavior, I definitely can see the comparison and how instinctually we may share some behavioral traits and needs.
Yeah, I agree with that. The thing is, a human wouldn't do it forever, right? Or most humans wouldn't do that forever, but we still share that basic animal dumb brain.
That being said, the experiment's pretty shitty. I agree with the criticism of the study based on the fact that Calhoun didn't create an experiment on the effects of overpopulation, but rather an experiment on social behavior in regards to interaction. Despite the cramped conditions, the population could have grown to house more mice in the environment. Technically, the issue is based on the lack of need of social interaction, as well as a sped-up generational gap that normalized these behaviors. The logic of it, if we provide them with housing and sustenance, they'll stop working. It just doesn't apply to humans. We already have the option of government-funded facility with room and board, the free meals and running water. It's called jail, and it sucks. Even if the government had provided a public and better version of that, it would be dorms like where someone could live rent-free. It provided a standard ration of food that one could survive on for their entire life. I don't see it being an issue that people would want to spend their entire life there. That's not a utopia. That's jail without the bars. And people will still work jobs to buy the things they want and, to live in the place they want to live. And, the things that, they feel that they deserve. People still want a sense of status and a role to fulfill in society. We build things and we create, we share, and we want more for ourselves, even if some are more ambitious than others. Sure, some people will settle for less, as they already do. Some people live on the streets or they squat in homes and they often starve and struggle until they die, also alone and on the street. In this case, they would at least have walls around them and a warm bed to die in. And I spoke to my cousin's wife has been working with a foundation that's housing homeless people for years. And I asked her, if the government did – let's say we took some of our national budget and we focused it on housing programs, make sure everyone has a bed to sleep on kind of thing. How helpful would that be? And she said, there is a percentage of the homeless population that would definitely help. This is a bit aside from it, but I thought it was interesting. and something to bring to light. There's a percentage of people that are like newly homeless, or like they need a month worth of their income so they can put a down payment on a place, or for rent or something, and they need that place to stay in the meantime. There is a much larger portion of the homeless population that without the mental assistance, without like a type of therapy or some kind of help in that regard. Exactly. They need that help, which many of them are just unwilling to go to, which in a position where a lot of them are, they don't feel like they can trust anyone, or they don't feel like they can trust, especially, not the government, for that matter.
The system's already betrayed them
right.
So
exactly.
much.
Why would they? So it makes sense in that regards, and that part sucks. But
dude, I 100% agree. Like I honestly think most like chronically homeless people, like I think, first of all, I think there should be public housing for everyone. I don't think anyone, like, I think that should be a priority, that everyone has some sort of place, even if it's a shitty government dorm, that you can sleep inside, away from the elements. That's something we should have had a fucking long time ago. It doesn't make sense to me that we can't meet basic necessary needs like that, right? But I do think most chronically homeless people are very sick. Like I've spent a lot of time. Most of the people are just really that sick, and it doesn't matter. They should still have a place to go, but most people won't know how to properly use it to better their situation.
Right. That is a big
until
thing.
They get long-term help.
That's something that she's mentioned in passing other times when we've talked about it, but it's a position of, it's not, will they, but can they? And, if they're in a certain headspace where it's just not, that's not enough, and they need other assistance that they're unwilling to get, then it's, I don't know. That's a hard topic, because it's the whole, like, you can't help someone that doesn't want to help themselves, but they don't want to help themselves because of, prior wrongs or prior things throughout their life that put them on this path. It's like, fuck, how do you help?
I've thought about this a lot too. My overall thought on it is, like, you can't do everything for someone who doesn't want to help themselves, right? Like, you can't give everything you have to them, right? You can't, like, spend your whole budget, give your own house, all those things. But my thought is, you give to them enough that in hopes that eventually they will want to help themselves. Even if like, I hate when you hear it's like, I'm not giving them money, they'll spend on drugs, whatever. It's like, who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
Like let's meet the basic needs until maybe, like, even if it's just like the compassion of other people caring enough that eventually, like, I don't know, what the fuck else are you gonna do? It is a sucky problem though. I think I would like your having a conversation with she seems cool.
Very, very cool people.
Yeah, I do think, like you mentioned, there are some similarities, right, between the psychology of us and animals, and I see how there are some of those parallels too. I think there is. He has a line on something, right? Even if it's just like people being spoiled,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, when you're given too much, you might not dissolve into gang violence and starving to death and your whole neighborhood dies, right? But when you're given too much of anything, there are repercussions, even if they are just psychological. I think he has something there, but I don't think the means or methods that he came to get to those conclusions, and to the extent he ran with them, tell us anything real about society. The truth of it is that the people with the time, money, and means to architect new, cruel, and unusual ways to abuse mice are probably the ones with the true behavioral sink.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you're so much he found things to say about society as much as he did. his group of people. So maybe Calhoun and all of his scholarly and financial backers are the ones who already have had their needs met and collapsed. Meanwhile, 90% of the fucking world is just trying to make it to their next meal. And these fuckers are killing rodents in the name of science. They knew prior that the mice were being psychologically disturbed in these groups. Like, how could you try to make a valid study if you already had established that in prior studies?
Look at these barbarians.
Right. So there may be some truth. I don't know, but there may be some truth to moral decay and overpopulation. I think that idea is typically used to justify like bigoted beliefs.
Yeah, they say like the whole moral thing is where it's like, whose morals?
Exactly. And I see how that could be debated, but it is not a truth that is provable.
Right.
Morality is a perception, not a science. And I think the moral part is especially interesting to me with this because it starts from such a know-it-all position where like they're already choosing what they decide is moral or not. And the whole experiment revolves around that in some intentional way. Questions such as who is running the experiment, who has the power of the universe, all of the, like how the resources are allotted, all of those things alter the experiment. I think Calhoun was just playing God. He's king of the mice.
He's big boy on top.
I mean, I have to think to some degree this was just like a big joke.
He's the big rat bastard of them all.
Yeah, like I bet he was just getting drunk and like spray painting mice. Like, let's see if they eat each other today. You know what I mean? Like I have a feeling this is one of those things where the results of the study had a much bigger life than the actual study itself. I bet this was something he just did in a fucking basement and like hardly anyone gave a fuck. 10 years it's forgot about, and then like forever after people use it to justify weird shit. So regardless, it's just all irrelevant. As a human species, we are at no risk anytime soon of the entire world living in abundance. That's what I don't really get about the abundance part. I guess he needed the abundance to be there to test the overpopulation aspects, or else they would. But in the real world, there's never going to be overabundance. In the real world, there would be too many people and not enough resources. Right. And
that's what too many people means.
Right. So that's what's confusing. That's confusing to me. And until we feed like all the millions of starving people across the globe, I don't see any parallel assumptions we can possibly draw from Universe 25. There's no problems with abundance, except in the ultra rich. And if anything, that might be like the thing you could draw is that that in people that have all of their needs met, maybe but it's not all of society, right?
I know there is a huge problem of food waste. There is somewhat of an abundance of food. Up to 40% of food in the U.S. is wasted.
I will say that statistic is, there's a lot of asterisks on it. There's a lot of factors to that one, but it is correct. We have a massive food waste problem. But they've changed a lot of it and how they used to gather that statistic. From what I understand, it might not be as high as 40%.
It's still high. It's still
very
higher
high.
than necessary. There shouldn't be.
Yeah, and we make enough food in the U.S. alone to feed our entire country. Every single person, including the homeless. Yeah, we just sell it all, right? Like not all of it, but we sell a massive portion of the food we grow to make money. But if we were just totally an enclosed universe, we, in theory, could make enough food for ourselves. Oh, so feed people, don't draw parallels. The rich, I think it's kind of cringe to be like, all rich people are fucked, right? Like, I don't like that, but I could see.
Kill the 1%ers. The top 10th of the 1%. God damn it, sorry.
I don't blame them, though. I blame the system's fucked, right? Like, they're just playing the game. I do see, like, maybe the spoiling, too much abundance. If anything, I could see maybe, like, abundance is not always good, is being, like, the moral of the study. But that's not what they took from it. And unfortunately, people still champion this study today. an attempt to justify their hatred and return to trad or traditional lifestyles, all that bullshit. Their talking points typically include nonsense about beta males, going back to the old ways, overpopulation, and it's all generally like loosely tied to like the fall of Rome and genocidal thinking.
There's a lot of anti-communist vibes about this, especially with the time period.
Yeah.
Of like look what happens when we give them everything. When this is what happens when you have, everyone gets the things they need.
That is right on point. Like they didn't have to compete for the cheese. We gave it to them. Look how they fell apart. This study is most often cited to justify bigotry against quote-unquote non-traditional sexualities. It is often roped in the same conversations that attribute the fall of Rome to non-traditional sex, and is really dumb and a massive failing of logic to arrive at any of those conclusions.
That's logic fallacy number 101.
All right, here's what sucks though. Sometimes I think I overvalue interesting more than accuracy sometimes. So that may be like a me thing, right? But I think some of those conversations are interesting and could be worth having when they're not out of justifying hatred. And the thing is like any conversation, it's like poisoned, right? Because there's so many people using bad ideas to make these bad arguments that you can't have like open conversations about it easily or publicly. Mm-hmm. It sucks. We're just in a weird place with these things right now. I wouldn't trust anyone who thinks that the killing of mice colonies 50 years ago should tell us how we should live.
Absolutely, yes. For that matter, anyone that was doing anything 50 years ago shouldn't tell us how we should live today.
You're the voice of the youth over here in your tie. That's really funny. I'm not sure if Calhoun was aware of this or not, but mice are not very smart. Yeah. They poop on the floor and they eat trash. And people sometimes do that too. But I think we are also more inclined to help each other than mice. Not everybody, but not even most. But we're more inclined to help each other than mice. And sure, sometimes we cannibalize each other.
Yeah. We did a podcast on it. You should listen to it.
But more often than not, humans will do what they can to change their environment, even if it's only to ease their suffering. If we gave everyone in the world unlimited food and a comfy couch, this mirrors what you were saying earlier, a lot of people would eat till their heart popped, but a lot of people would not, and they would use that food to fuel a better, more empowered life.
Yeah.
We have more agency than mice. Even if it's 50-50, I think everyone gets to determine what they think the percent of people who are good and bad, motivated, late, whatever you want to fucking call it. Like, we all get to determine where we draw that line, but we know for sure that we have a lot more agency and control, will to change our environment, our circumstances than mice. It's not the same. Yeah. Calhoun didn't so much as build a mice utopia as he proved that creating a self-contained society devoid of stimulus will induce violence and rapid decreases in population. Over the years, many researchers would later argue that Calhoun's work was not simply about density in a physical sense, more the consequences of the social aspects than just space alone. All those dynamics, the gang warfare.
Right.
Another one of Calhoun's closest colleagues, I believe he worked with him on Universe 25, would later go on to say, at the experiment's end, the only animals still alive had survived at an immense psychological cost. Asexual and utterly withdrawn, they clustered in vacant. They clustered in vacant, huddled masses. Rodent utopia had descended into hell. Calhoun himself saw the fate of the population of mice as a metaphor for the potential fate of humankind. He characterized the social breakdown as a spiritual death, with reference to bodily death as the second death, mentioned in biblical verse Revelations 2:11. if we really wanted to test his theory that the excess was a population downfall, then why not give the rats like alternate environments? Right. Having like different levels of difficulty to reach or things they had to do, something that could change factors.
Even some kind of they have oh god damn it, enrichment.
Tranquilizers?
What'd you say? I mean, yeah, that could be enrichment too, but no, like they give them like, a fucking wheel to run on or some shit.
Oh, right. And we see that in other, like they needed like other alternatives in the universe. If they're not going to have alternative universes because they need to have like consistency in the factors, like there just has to be those different elements.
You know what I also didn't see in research was like how they did waste management. Like what did they do? Like how often did they clean it and, like clean the waste and whatnot out, or if they did at all. And if they had, like when the other mice died, I assume they had to have, removed the corpses.
Well, they let them cannibalize sometimes. So at what point do they remove the corpse too? Honestly, dude, those are really good questions because in something where it's all about overpopulation, those secondary effects of the overpopulation greatly affect their living.
Exactly.
That's troubling. That is a troubling question, good sir. So in other studies, and I realize this particular study that I'm about to cite is also still about mice. Like it isn't direct proof of anything, but they've done additional study, whatever. But in other studies that they've done on drug addiction, right, with mice, the animals typically will choose to drink water with drugs in it, right? Drugs make your brain feel good. You're typically going to do the drugs. And the mice would become addicted and waste away until you offer them bigger areas with activities, with the little spinny wheels, places to explore and socialize in adequate groups, not packed in there. But as the animal's universe expands, the want to get high typically lessens. And the parallels people have drawn with those drug studies on mice is that the drug itself can be so controlling when the environment is static. Right. When it's a shitty living environment and you have no way to like make things better. But as the person's living conditions, environment, life, social, whatever, as those things get better, you have a better chance of naturally wanting to use the drug less. And they use that to justify drug treatment changes in, I think, Portugal or whatever. And they saw like excellent results with addiction. There's some controversy with that stuff, whatever. I just think the point is there was no way for the Universe 25 to expand, right? It was really just shrinking. Calhoun was offering no alternatives. The only guarantee in that universe was death, really. If they bred forever, like the space would never expand. So there was just no chance. In his original experiments prior to Universe 25, the mice were treated well, and they had these massive enclosures. It was like 10,000 square feet or whatever. And then he realizes in those early studies that the mice hated being in the groups of 12 or more, and that it caused them psychological stress and even physical harm. Yet he continued his research and went on to create a more barbaric universe in which he knew they would not be healthy. That's what's crazy to me. It's like you basically did all the pre-study work and experiments to like do a study where you could only reach the outcome you wanted.
There is the mad scientist part of me that makes me think of like these are experiments that like how as shitty as they are, they have to be done. Not in a way they have to be done, but it answers questions.
Feel you.
And it's an experiment, and I don't morally think that it's a good idea, and I think that he definitely knew the outcome from the start. But if there's a question about it, the scientific part of my brain says, well, let's test it. But morally, of course, I'm leaning towards, no, this was a dumb idea to begin with.
I feel very similar where I agree. Like, morally, it's fucked. I love Frankenstein's. I love the idea of a scientist who will butcher thousands of animals to come to like some like stupid
minuscule conclusion that doesn't really affect anything.
Because and that may be my bias where it's like it's interesting, right? Like I don't really care what the findings were. Like this dude did something weird and it was interesting. Like my morals may be like fuck this dude, he fucking killed a bunch of mice, but I can't help but be attracted to the story. I think it should like be more clear in a sense, like with these studies where whether it's like true science or psychology, because it feels like this is really just like a psychology, like sociology, that type of thing, more than anything scientific at all. And I would hazard to guess you can't do an experiment quite this like haphazardly or in these like type of conditions that are so, I don't know, under his thumb and like like that tight of
the
spaces.
Scientific method has improved dramatically,
but it does feel like the type of thing like in the 1950s. It does feel like this was like fundamental research. I don't think that it was, but it feels as if it was. I don't really know where the truth is between that, but it feels like a lot of these mad scientist things were things that were like needed, even if they weren't correct. I don't know if they actually were needed, but it feels as if
they got bored after the war. They needed something to do.
Now, I can tell you this. If I put 100 cats in my closet, I'm pretty sure most of them would die too.
They're all the beautiful ones.
All the cats in my closet are beautiful. So
you open the closet door, they're all just cleaning each other. Like it's a beautiful society. Like, why didn't we ever try this before?
But if I like take a step back and think of it like that, it's all like such basic common sense. Like for real, like if I put a bunch of animals in a small space and feed them forever, of course it's going to go bad. Like that. I don't know if that requires killing thousands of mice over all these years to figure out.
No, I do have a moral question to ask you on that.
Okay.
So 8 mice went in, right? That was the original. He had 8 mice to begin with. Within that universe spawned upwards of 22,000.
2,000.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I assume more than that, that was just the peak of how many there were at any given point. From an outside perspective, four mice go into this building, none come out. How many mice actually died? To the outside world, to the outside perspective,
that's some Schrodinger's dead mice in a box right there.
I mean, obviously we know it's thousands of mice died.
But you're saying if we don't know
before you knew about this experiment.
I think I know the answer, actually. The perfect rhetorical answer is at least 4 mice
At least
died.
8. Yes, I put 4 in the notes, but at least 8.
Yeah, like at least 8 died. I think that's as accurate as you can get with that answer till you know what happened inside the box.
It's wild shit.
That's a fun one. Yeah, fuck the cat. Let's put a bunch of mice in a box. Okay, Schrodinger was pretty fucked up too. But if Calhoun actually wanted to learn anything valuable that we could compare to humans today, I don't really understand why he had never attempted to figure out. Like, he ran this experiment a bunch of fucking times, and he was always getting the same results where he kills the whole mice colony. But why hadn't he ever attempted to maximize the equilibrium stages of the experiment? I feel like if you want to learn anything of value, then why not like run it in ways to try to learn something helpful?
Yeah.
Like he knew they were going to die. He knew that before he even did it. And he's just running it on repeat. He never cared about any of the other stages except the die stage. I think he only wanted to accelerate the death of the very universe he created. Yeah. He's just killing his own universe over and over. And people use it to think stupid ideas.
Yep.
Fucking losers. If you ever had a pet mouse?
I have not. My cousin had pet gerbils growing up, though.
I did surgery on a gerbil once.
I remember one of them was named Peaches and Cream, and that's the only one I remember.
That's a
It's
cute
a very
name.
cute name. It was like, that kind of tan, and it had little white spots on it. Peaches and Cream.
Yeah, I like mice. They're cute. I just don't like. I don't think I'd like having them as a pet because I'm afraid I'd squish them.
Yeah.
Like laying in bed. So then you have to put them in a cage all the time, and then they don't really feel like a pet. They feel like
It's an animal in a cage.
Yeah, I'm not into the animal cage deal. If I want a pet, I want it to be like my travel around buddy. I don't want it to be locked up in a cage.
We had someone we knew in high school that had a iguana growing up, and when I'd go over their house, it was usually it's a terrarium kind of thing they had for it, but it was a big iguana. And I was like, oh, it just stays in there? Like, no, we let it walk around all around the house, and it goes outside with us and basks in the sun and shit. And it's like, oh, cool. I didn't have
You know how much bacteria iguanas
Yeah, I've heard
have?
that. Yeah, they're pretty bad.
I don't want that fucker walking all over my kitchen and shit. No. Like, I fucking love iguanas, but I don't want it in a
it doesn't need to be in my house.
No.
There's no reason for it to be in my house.
No. That's fun, though. All right, here, this is just an observation. And I know a couple, like, snake breeders, like, that do reptile shit, whatever. And those people are always very classy.
Okay. I thought that was going to go a different way.
Hear me out. They treat those animals like goddamn kings and queens. Like, they have so much space, and they actually, like if they're a for real breeder, they really go all out to treat those animals right. But the average snake owner or lizard haver that I have met, they have no fucking idea what they're doing. And it's just like borderline abuse, like 90% of the time.
Fucked. That's really fucked.
Now that's gonna offend some weirdo with a lizard. And I say, prove me wrong.
Me and my subreddit of other snake owners, we would never treat animals that way. We know what we're doing.
A bunch of people really do treat them good, but there is like a higher percentage than, let's say, dog or cat owners that treat their animal shitty because it draws a different personality type. Not all the time, but
I know my niece got she wanted a frog. She's always liked frogs, and before she even like approached the topic of like asking for one, she like built up like a binder kind of report of like, these are the things that I would need for it, and this is how often it would need to be fed, and this is the kind of nesting it needs, and this is the kind of interaction it needs, and like showed that like she is not only capable but is willing to care for this animal.
Responsible frog owner right there.
And it's got this nice little frog named Hops, and she's very cute.
That's cool, dude. When I was probably similar to like her age, maybe when she got the frog, I had saved up for this frog. I was like, I don't know, first grade or whatever. And I'm saving up for this frog. We had an aquarium, and I thought the fish were boring, right?
Yeah.
We had like maybe a beta fish and a couple goldfish or some shit. And I was like, I'm going to save up for a frog. And I wanted this giant albino frog. It was like it was huge. And I saved up forever for it. My parents took me to the fish store. And I go to buy the big albino frog, and they're like, hey, you have to get it when it's small or it won't do well or some shit. So I get the little baby version. I'm through the roof, and I go home, and it's me and my mom, and we're sitting at the tank, and I put the frog in, right? And he kind of like sinks to the bottom, and then he starts crawling around. He's doing good. The beta fish comes out. And as soon as it sees the frog, it ate it.
Oh, goddamn.
It tore off its legs, and there was blood everywhere in the tank.
Fucking brutal.
Dude, honestly, it was like the funniest shit ever. Because I was like screaming in tears. I was like, did not know a fish could eat my new frog that I saved up for weeks. And then my mom flushed the fish too, and I'm just left with an empty aquarium filled with blood. And then I never like got another fish.
This is why you are the way you are.
That's when I took all my damage. My son, it destroyed me.
When I was, I guess I had to be 17-ish. I had a little tiny fish.
Is that when you killed 2,200
Yeah,
mice?
that's what I killed. I had this experiment where I put all these mice in a 9-foot by 9-foot container. No, I had a little fish tank that someone had given me, and I was like, oh, cool, I should get some fish for it. And it was like a really small one, so I got these neon tetras, and they're like really tiny, like fingernail size, really tiny fish, but they're really pretty.
Okay.
And I got them in there, and I set it all up, and I put it on a shelf, and I forgot about it. I'm sure I fed up a couple times, but I completely forgot about them. And I don't remember how much time went by before I remembered, like, oh shit, there's fish in this thing. And I think there was like a couple of them that were alive still.
Surviving off the other ones.
Yeah, basically. And I've felt awful about it ever since. And it was like, okay, I treat aquariums like I do houseplants. And that I set it up there, and then I remember as it's dying, oh shit, I need to put water in this thing. It needs sunlight.
Oh,
and
dude,
yeah, never again will I do an aquarium pet.
how many souls do you think? All right, I don't believe in souls.
What's my kill count?
Yeah, what's your kill count, bro? Like, if you had to guess, like, how much shit do you think we've killed including things we eat?
Oh, that's
things with a heartbeat, a pulse, a brain, a soul from God. How many?
That's tricky because like nearly every steak I've ever eaten has probably come from a different cow, right?
Sure, but every time you cut the grass, how many fucking ants did you murder? I mean,
then it's got to be in the tens of thousands.
Certainly.
I mean, I was even just thinking like roadkill and like stuff like that, like the ones that I'm aware of. Yeah.
I say unconscious too. All the spiders you ate, all the ants you stepped on.
Well,
a fish tank.
It's hard to factor in the spiders because most people eat so many during their sleep, but I mean, I eat them just for fun,
just for snacks. Chocolate spiders.
I'm an outlier, and I shouldn't be counted.
I would bet in our lifetime each of us kill 1 million things. Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Half a mil, a milli.
Just a cool milli. Just
a cool milli.
Round it up a little bit, round it down.
That's a solid kill count.
Yeah,
here's an interesting question. That's a pretty good K to D ratio right there.
I didn't even have to respond once that whole time.
Now, I would hazard to guess a hunter does not kill that much more than the average person across a lifetime. Because if they are killing, and let's say they eat their kills too, right? They could be killing less than a normal person is contributing to different animals' death. If that deer feeds them for a week's worth of time, and that only added +1 kill.
Yeah, rather than
they're not killing that much.
Steak from the grocery store, multiple times or once a week or so. Yeah.
My cat just sprung out of jail.
Oh.
I don't know how I stopped this podcast. I put her in. Oh no, different cat.
Oh, there you go.
My apologies, lady. She doesn't deserve jail. We'll let her be free. No, it's a problem.
It's a whole another can of worms to open for a potential another vegan episode.
Yeah, the hunting part I find tricky.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that's probably good on a recording today.
We're good on the death of mice.
Yeah, we're good on it.
Another universe down. We're just ending worlds over here, right?
Yeah.
What's next? What are
freestyle's our next one.
We got some fun stuff ahead too. And thanks everybody for listening. You guys have been really cool. We had our best month yet.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I really we really appreciate anyone that actually thinks that it's worth listening to during the week. That's really fun.
Yes.
If you feel like sharing it with somebody else, that's even fucking cooler.
Go on the Bengals Instagram page and tag us and then a random player.
Yeah. Do that. Definitely do that.
Make it fun. Dude, I hope you have fun tonight with the party stuff.
It should be pretty cool. I did want to put at the end of this, I heard a quote from Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
By way of a YouTube video that I was watching of someone else. But it was a Mr. Rogers quote, and he says, "If it's mentionable, it's manageable." And it was like in the context of especially of mental health and things like that, like when you're dealing with things in your head, and like, sometimes you feel like the depression that comes on is like there's not really one thing in particular. It's like a bunch of things and like a bunch of overlapping shit. If you can put it into words, then you can deal with it. And I thought that was a really cool way of thinking about, problems in general. I don't know. I feel like it kind of shined a light on the way I look at my own thoughts. And I felt like, well, maybe if I can share that with someone else, it might help them. So I just wanted to bring that in.
I like that. And, Mr. Rogers is very credible in this area because he killed thousands
Goddamn
of mice
right
too.
he did.
So I also really like
Absolute
the line,
lunatic.
it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility.
Yeah.
So kill a mice, do whatever you need to do. Universe 25 is dead. New stuff ahead, and I think that's it.
Thank you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human.
Thanks, John. Finish your stuff.
Make sure to check out the show page at Trashcats on Instagram for news and art from the show. Also check out Facebook for the memes.
If you're super bored, you can check out my trashy art on Instagram at SKYZICX. It has been very slow, but I'm working on stuff. I've been kind of taking a break to write a little bit, but still working. It's coming. Next Wednesday is our freestyle. Those are always very fun, very chill. And I think that's it.
That's going to be all for us today. Stay classy, eat trashy.
Go fast, eat trash. And don't kill mice.
Don't kill mice. Or if you do it by the thousands. Because then it's science.
Kill your enemies.
Yeah.